5 names, 1 city, a rivalry map etched from the jailhouse to the junction. In Winnipeg, the heartbeat of the gang story isn't just turf, it's feud. Indian Posse and Manitoba Warriors harden their codes behind the wire, then export them down Salter and Selkirk. Bikers in red and white pull strings through a support crew. In West Broadway, Mad Cowz and B-Side turn street corners into scoreboards. Native Syndicate refuses to bend to either pole. Tonight, the verdict stands. These 5 crews didn't just fight on Winnipeg's streets, they engineered them. We'll separate record from rumor, flag convictions in plain speech, and keep allegations as allegations. Every set piece ends with a twist. This is a rivalry-driven file in a prairie cadence. Grain elevators to guard towers, Highway 1 to the perimeter. We track power through corridors, the North End grid, West Broadway's tight blocks off Sherbrook, the bridge lanes through St. Boniface that carry whispers. We stay Canadian and Winnipeg first. The stakes are simple: how 5 banners built playbooks, police still counter in 2025. Indian Posse emerges in the late 1980s with a Winnipeg base and a prison-to-street identity. The lore threads through the Wolf brothers, Danny and Richard, whose legend later fuels books, headlines, and backlash to that legend. In the public record, IP's rise mirrors the city's 1990s gang wave and the North End's economies of loyalty, survival, and quick cash. On the street, the belief is simpler. IP taught Winnipeg to think in crews and codes that outlived the founders. By the mid-2000s, both founders are gone. Danny killed in 2010 inside Saskatchewan Penitentiary. Richard dead in 2016. The brand remains, mutating through cells and alliances. Their defining foil is the Manitoba Warriors. Inside and out, that feud writes rules for who walks with whom in Stony Mountain's ranges and on Selkirk's sidewalks. Winnipeg's gang grammar is carceral. Stony Mountain Institution, northwest of the city, serves as the crucible. Headingley, the provincial jail west of town, becomes the spark that made national news in April 1996 when a riot seized the tiers. Guards and inmates were injured, millions in damage, and a logistics scramble to rehouse hundreds. The government ordered an independent review and pledged upgrades, official recognition that the pressure cooker had blown. On the street, the takeaway turned into mythology. Lines drawn inside don't stay inside. They travel by transfer van, bus ticket, and word of mouth straight to the North End and the downtown grids. In 2000, Winnipeg's biker landscape shifts when local bikers tied to Los Bravos fold into a Hells Angels chapter, bringing a corporate spine to street distribution. The Angels' day-to-day leverage often runs through a support club known as the Zigzag Crew. Official documents later call Zigzag a support or puppet crew, language that explains why a multi-agency probe called Project Divide targets Zigzag to pinch the supply line. December 2009 brings dawn raids on homes and clubhouses. Dozens are charged. Inside the case file appears a wired insider, nicknamed in coverage as Agent 22, who records meetings and transactions and guides the takedown. The picture is stark. When the support beam snaps, the roof sags. If IP is one pole, Manitoba Warriors are the counterweight. Born in the early 1990s with Stony Mountain roots, MW's structure borrows from biker culture, ranks, rules, striking in. In the public record, MW spreads across the Central and North End grid and the Prairie Prison Circuit. In community memory, they're the crew that stood toe-to-toe with IP when the city first learned the language of colors, codes, and corridors. Alliances shift with time. In some eras, they're accused of interfacing with biker supply lines. In others, they're targeted in distinct police operations. The point isn't to canonize, but to note the duel. IP versus MW isn't just a headline. It's the organizing story of a generation. Quick pause while we're in this first chapter. If you're into deep, fact-checked breakdowns of Canadian gang history like this, hit subscribe to Canadian Crime Files. To support my channel, Winnipeg's map decides who eats. Highway 1 and the perimeter loop freight around the city. CN and CP rail stitch in containers from the coasts. The North End grid near the Canadian Pacific Yards becomes a rivalry canvas. Selkirk, Manitoba Avenue, Andrews, McGregor. Downtown and West Broadway's tight blocks turn into choke points you can watch from a single stoop. Officially, police fuse data with targeted projects. Community workers rid the tension by who stands on which corner. The old feud keeps writing the present, whether through organized takedowns or sudden flare-ups that ripple back into the jails. The tears light up, the radios fail, and Winnipeg wakes to a prison on fire. April 25th to 26th, 1996. Headingley Correctional Institution erupts. It takes roughly a day to regain control. Guards and inmates are injured. The price tag dents the provincial budget. The province orders an independent review, then publicizes upgrades. Street rumor says the chaos calcified rivalries already simmering in the prairie system. Officers are overrun. Units burn. A scramble begins to redistribute hundreds of inmates across the system. On air, anchors call it Manitoba's largest jail seizing control of itself. By morning, smoke pillars redraw the skyline west of the perimeter. The twist isn't a smoking gun, it's a paper one. The government's response reads like a blueprint. Inquiry first, upgrades next. Officials acknowledge that institutional failures and overcrowding helped prime the blast. On the street, that blueprint translates to a new kind of certainty. When the jail shakes, Selkirk and Sherbrook feel aftershocks. The riot becomes a defining memory for both corrections and the city's gang era. The message that escapes the wire is simple. The alliances forged inside won't stay there. Before sunrise, the garage doors roll up and Winnipeg's most famous support crew gets rolled. Late 2008 into 2009, the Manitoba Integrated Organized Crime Task Force builds a file on the Zigzag Crew's role alongside the Hells Angels chapter. Warrants map homes, a clubhouse, and satellites beyond the perimeter. On December 2nd, 2009, coordinated raids sweep across Winnipeg with one in British Columbia. Police seize cocaine, meth, ecstasy, cash, and paraphernalia. Dozens are charged. In affidavits, investigators describe a wired insider, later dubbed Agent 22 in media, who wears recording gear into meetings and buys, guiding the takedown. He doesn't burst into rooms with a badge. He sits on couches, nods through small talk, counts out bills, and lets the mic record who really calls the shots. The twist is vacuum physics. Inquest material later notes that divides shock to the biker ecosystem, leaves a void others move to fill, bringing fresh conflict. The project doesn't end the story. It rewrites who gets to tell it next. For a few seasons, patched bikers go quiet on certain corners, but the silence doesn't last. New intermediaries slide into those seats, some looser, some more reckless, all trying to prove they belong. Sentencings and appeals ripple for years. The Zigzag brand fades. Successors and rebrands appear. Enforcement pivots to the new nodes. Police manuals change their gang charts. Community workers say the faces at their drop-ins change, but the stress on families doesn't. While IP and MW duel, a third pole forms in the early 1990s, Native Syndicate. In the official story, NS traces to Stony Mountain, a crew that refuses to be junior to either major pole. In prairie institutions, NS complicates the unit map. On the street, it creates fresh calculations for who can be housed with whom and who must be walked around. Line staff talk about pod walks that feel like math problems. Every move has to be checked twice, so a casual escort doesn't turn into a code red brawl. The underworld belief says NS's refusal to pledge to either IP or MW kept prairie tensions permanently unstable. Corrections testimony and inquest transcripts speak to the juggling act, mixing groups when they get along, separating them when street beefs spill inside. You can lock a door, but you can't lock out the feuds that rode in with the transfer bus. West Broadway and the West End host a different, younger war. In 2004, 14-year-old Sirach Okbazion is gunned down near Sherbrook. The next year, 17-year-old bystander Phil Highart is killed in crossfire, an act that turns public outrage into policy, momentum. In the rumor mill, this is where Mad Cowz harden against B-Side and splinters like African mafia form. In the official record, charges and convictions follow across the years, mapping how a neighborhood feud keeps resetting the city's temperature. News hits the 6 o'clock broadcast, then the streets decide whether the night will stay calm or not. The symbolism is not subtle. Daylight shootings, steps from schools or corner stores say, "We own the clock." Outreach workers and officers later described 2021 incidents as part of an active war, proof that the feud's DNA endures. T-shirts, murals, and RIP posts on phones become the unofficial scorecard. The courtroom is where Winnipeg tries to slow the clock. In the wake of West Broadway killings, juries and judges hammer out life sentences and parole ineligibility. Some accused seek new trials. Others face deportation orders after sentence. Parallel to biker cases, Divide-era dockets move through pleas and trials, with inquest records later connecting the enforcement shock to a new biker chessboard. Courtrooms become the only rooms where all three poles, IP, MW, NS, plus bikers and offshoots, appear in the same narrative, even if they never share a bench. On paper, big projects create breathing room. On the street, they change the names, but not the logic. Dial a dope lines go on pause, then get a new phone. Corridors stay the same. Highway 1, the perimeter, the Selkirk grid, the Sherbrook corridor. The city map doesn't move. The ownership claims painted over it do. What changes after 30 years? The names cycle. The template endures. Winnipeg learned to track influence from prisons to porches, from meetings in garages to ad hoc memorials on Sherbrook. Indian Posse and Manitoba Warriors still frame risk, even when younger crews write the week-to-week headlines. The Hells Angels footprint flexes with enforcement pressure and support crew evolution. Native Syndicate remains a third rail in the institutions. Community workers build interventions, while task forces spin up new project names. Every few years, a new operation promises to dismantle something. Every winter, patrol officers still answer calls on the same blocks. As of 2025, Winnipeg's gang map still echoes 5 banners and the rivalries they taught the city to recognize. The corridors are the same. The choices aren't. For some, reinvention sticks. For others, the feud pulls them back. The lesson remains prairie plain. What starts behind the wire doesn't stay there, and the city has learned to live with the echo. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to Canadian Crime Files for more engaging stories.